Imagine you're an advertising executive working for some American tobacco company in the 1920s, and the company has noticed that most smokers are just men, but then you've been recently tasked with the objective to sell more cigarettes to women. Now, ignoring the moral implications, how would you achieve this goal? And this was a question someone known as Edward Bernays faced, the Austrian-American pioneer of the fields of public relations and propaganda. He knew psychological operations and how to utilize it as he applied the inversion method, which involves taking a normal approach to a problem and turning it upside down. There are two ways of approaching inversion. The first is to assume something is true. Then you work backwards to show what else would have to be true for that to be the case. Let's look at Edward Bernays. He started thinking, let's assume we live in a world where women do smoke as much as men. What else would have to be true? He then realized that women need to feel like it was socially acceptable and desirable to be able to smoke. And for that to happen, smoking would need to be linked to other things which are socially acceptable and desirable. He was able to get through this by having advertising campaigns and presenting something known as Lucky Strike cigarettes as an after-dinner treat to replace desserts. In other words, as an elegant means to maintaining a slim figure, with models taking them as well. He also marketed them as torches of freedom, and the women's rights movement was on the march, and Bernays presented smoking to them as a way for women to show their independence. So that's an example of how inversion was applied. The other one works very much the same way but reverse. This time you assume the opposite of what you want to accomplish, and then you see what else would you need to be true for this scenario to happen, and then you can avoid those scenarios. Let's say you want to be rich. To practice inversion, you need to assume you're poor and then work backwards towards thinking about the actions that can lead you to poverty. These would include spending money mindlessly, more than you can afford, having instant gratification for that reason as well, having a lot of loans and over leveraging where you're borrowing more than you can afford, with high interest loans especially, investing in extremely risk assets with literally no strategy and risk management, and having several subscription services. By identifying all of these behaviors, you can come up with a list of things you should do to avoid them so you can, as a result, become rich. An action step I recommend is to close your eyes, visualize the peak of yourself in all aspects of life that you are destined to be in this world. Now work your way backwards of what would it take for you to get there. What set parameters and inputs would you need to provide for you to get there? Then also imagine the worst version of yourself and identify what bad traits and habits would you need to engage in that leads to such an outcome. And you want to make this list of one that you want to avoid doing to prevent yourself from going there. Because once you know what it takes for you to get to the best version, you know what it takes for you to get to the worst version, then all you have to do is simply avoid all the worst, the habits that build up the worst version, and only do the habits that build the best version. And it's only a matter of time where you just fulfill and become the best version of yourself that you are destined to become in this world. So this was part 4 of the mental model and critical thinking skills. And if you enjoyed this video, then like and subscribe and stay tuned for more.